live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Blake Ruffino. This is Are You Serious Sports? We hope that you guys are making it a good one. We know that we are as well. Episode 700. How about that, man? How about that? How about that? You got to love it, man. Anytime you do something 77 or 700 times, it's a lot. That is a lot, but it's good to be here. It's good to be with you here tonight. We have a lot to discuss. We talk LSU and Georgia baseball preview. I had to get my notes. We talk LSU baseball preview here tonight. The BK lockdown effect BK's lockdown is in full effect. Something that LSU is attempting to do that has not been done since 2001. We talked about that a little bit last night. We're going to talk about that a lot more here tonight as we talk about a little bit of recruiting as well. Wilson Alexander from The Advocate joins us at 7:30. Looking forward to hearing from our good man, Wilson Alexander, the best man with the best hair in all of LSU sports and athletics. He joins us here at 7:30. We do some SEC projections. So if you just listen to us on the Ruffino and Joe show, we're going to add a little bit more context into my thoughts. We'll start doing this SEC preview and really just college football preview more as football gets close. So I'm really excited about this. As I told you last year, we'll be starting to expand around June the 1st in reference to talking more national stuff at the end of the shows. So I'm really excited to be talking about some SEC East here with you tonight. Cam Jordan signs a contract extension. We weren't able to talk about that last night because we talked a lot about Logan Diggs becoming an LSU Tiger and what that meant for John Emery, along with talking some baseball. So we will talk about tonight. We will talk about the Cam Jordan extension. It's something that you got to love, because it's not every year, it's not every day that you have a guy that stays at one place his entire career, right? Like, it just doesn't happen a lot. It just doesn't happen a lot. So we'll touch on that tonight here as well. Levi, our first comment of the night, says, we are here, episode 700. That's right. That's right. Appreciate you being with us here, Levi. Delton says 700 and counting. Smash that like and share button. Abso-freaking-lutely. Father Matthew Christopher Abear says 700, big dog. So grateful to all the time and energy you put into this. Me too, man. I love it. Here's to 700 more as we cheers. I have a bottle of water. No more alcoholic beverages with me on this show, unless it's a post game and LSU loses a game. They shouldn't. Our good man Adam on YouTube, my man, sends us $13 and I guess $.99. $13.99. I don't know. Adam, what's the Canadian currency? What is the Canadian currency? I don't know it. I don't know it. Maybe I did just break some news. I see this from Holden Lee. I thought the Saints offered him. You're right. What did I say? He signed a contract extension or is getting a contract extension. That's what I meant to say. Thank you for correcting my words there. Eric Wright says 700. Thank you, my man. I appreciate that. Adam also says, hope you watch that Champions League final. There's going to be some LSU repping there. Okay, I'll have to do that. Dave Bergeron says, good evening, Blake. Congrats on 700. Thank you very much for that. Douglas Kimball says, and I'll be here for episode 1000. Thank you so much, man. DK says, congrats. Thank you, buddy. And Adam says, 14 Canadian dollars is about $10 in the U.S. Okay. I dig that. Preach. Much love. Bill on YouTube says, Keon Coleman on live said, we want all the smoke in week 1. Well, good for him. Listen now, he's been out there talking some trash. Keon Coleman been out there talking some trash now. Don't make Louisiana exile Opelousas, because we will exile Opelousas hot, fast, and up in a minute. Don't be doing that on your city now. Don't look here. Listen to Keon Coleman. If Keon Coleman ever listens to this, somebody can clip it and send it to him. If Keon Coleman ever listens to this, but I know that you're aggravated that Ed Orgeron didn't offer you. But here's the truth. Send it to him now. I know what you know and what LSU was preparing to do. So don't be hitting LSU with no smoke now. They told you what the business was. Just because you got your feelings in some kind of way doesn't mean nothing now. You know that that's right. You know that that's right. Don't be playing them games now. Don't be playing them games. Chad on YouTube says Coleman wasn't taking his chances jumping into that wide receiver room at LSU. I do agree with that. Levi says, I think I was bad luck the last 2 SEC series because I was at both. Don't worry, I'll be at home this weekend. How could you be there when they're losing, Levi? Jeez. Brandon Ray says, getting Juwan Johnson and Logan Diggs was huge for BK. Yeah. Sure was. Purple Kush, thank you so much. On YouTube says, watching from Maine, go Tigers with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you, Purple Kush. Perfect name. Perfect name for a YouTube channel. Purple Kush. You got to love it, man. You got to love it. All right, a couple more, then we'll get rolling here. Brandon Reese says, I doubt he would get much playing time at LSU anyway. I don't agree there. I don't agree. Nope. Bill on YouTube says, the winner of Florida State LSU will make the playoff. You can mark my words. You know what's interesting about that, and we probably could go on a little segment and ask the question is, could Florida State and LSU be a national championship appetizer? Could it be a preview to what we see in a national title game or a playoff? Man, it could be. Both teams are just so similar. Veteran offensive line returning, check. Guys at the wide receiver team returning, check. Going and getting a former Louisiana wide receiver from another school to transfer it in. Aaron Anderson, Keon Coleman, check. Decent running game, check. Dual threat quarterbacks, check. Defensive linemen that are really good, check. 5-star guys out of the portal, DB, check. Similar, man. Very similar. See who prevails here. See who prevails. Chris Lomax says, I want that DB from Marshall. Yeah. I know there was a big LSU contingent about it last night. They were getting after it. Don't know if you saw it. I also don't know if you saw the NCAA football game was back. But they did. The entire LSU team, not the entire, but a lot of the LSU team was pumping up Andre Sam, who is the safety from Marshall that is in the transfer portal that LSU really does like. All right, one more, then we'll get rolling. Penn Jones. Who Penn Jones? Says Diggs is going to remind a lot of people of another great number 3 we had, Kevin Falk. Man, I hope so. She. We'll see. We'll see. All right, let's get this thing rolling. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share. Share to all of those social media groups. Share to all of your social media pages. If you're listening to us on YouTube, don't forget, like, subscribe, and notification bell. We greatly appreciate you doing that for us. It helps us out when you hit that like button on that algorithm. So the more people that are inside the chat right now, do us a favor. Hit that like button because it helps your boy out. If you're listening to us on, not on, but if you're listening to us wherever you listen to podcasts, if you're listening to us on the TuneIn app, SiriusXM, wherever, rate, review, and subscribe. We appreciate you doing that. Let's take our first break. We're back soon. Don't you touch anything. You continue to listen to us. We'll return in just a minute. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. With over 65 years of experience, nobody is better equipped to service in your vehicle than GM Varnado & Sons. RV repair, big rig overhauls, motorhome chassis, routine maintenance, tire rotations, tire sales. No job is too big or too small over at GM. If you break down the side of the road in the greater Baton Rouge area, they will come and get you. And the best thing about that is that they can come and get you, and then they can bring your vehicle back to their shop and start the repairs right then. Again, GM Varnado & Sons. Go see them over at 2500 Fuller Boulevard. Give them a call at 225-664-9992. 225-664-9992. Tell them your good friend Blake Ruffino sent you on by. We're back. All right, let's get this thing rolling, y'all. Jamie Lear says, sell 100. Sell 100. Mike Tiger on Facebook says, Blake, you don't want that smoke in NC2A, the football game. Let me tell you something, Mike the Tiger. I will smoke you, dude. I will smoke you, bro. In case you missed it today, it was announced EA Sports is bringing back the very popular video game, and that teams will, or they will, allow players through their name, image, and likeness. I'm assuming will be a lot like the NFL. Everybody receives the same. It's a cap, and you got to opt in to be on the video game. And look, I'm excited for it, man. I played NCAA football more than even remotely what I played Madden. And I do believe that it was where I found my first love and why I love college football so much. You know, so I don't think that my parents will hate me saying this. But we didn't grow up, or I did not grow up, you know, and look, when I say this, my parents never let me go without. They did everything that they could. And I am not saying that. My parents, both of them, especially my mom, has been there for me, and my dad. I don't. But my mom was a single mom, and every summer for my birthday, I would ask for NCAA football game, and she would give it for me. And man, let me tell you something. I would play that thing. I would play that thing as long, so freaking long, man. I loved it. I would go and play with other schools. But you know what? It was really the only dynasty I ever kept and just really wanted to keep going. I always played at LSU. And I found my love there. And overall, why I cater more to LSU than I ever do the Saints. I love college football because everything it gives me on a Saturday and that stupid video game. Stupid video game. So I'm glad it's back. I will play it. It is what it is. Doug No says $500 a player. Hey, man. I mean, think about this. Think if there's 85 scholarship players. Doug, just for example, think if there's 85 scholarship players in 130 programs. So 85 times 130, right? That's 11,050. Now, times that by 500, and that's 5.5 million. It's a lot of money to fork out, man. Father Abear says, I know every school's fight song because of the game. That's true. It's honestly where I learned a lot about it. I'm serious. Like who the rivalry games were and like when, like the third weekend in October and just so many. Yeah. Mike Tiger says they make $100 million off the game. That's true. That's true. That's true. Doug Nose says they have a $5 million cap. There you go, man. So there you go. Right? I mean, look, I'm just glad we're getting the game back, bro. I'm just so freaking glad that we're getting the game back. All right, we got to stop talking about this stupid game. We got a lot of real life shizite we need to talk about. Okay. Stop me if you've heard this before. LSU's going into a weekend series where they're playing a team that can somewhat hit pretty well. I said it last week against Mississippi State. Got a lot of pushback. Said that against Auburn. Got a lot of pushback. And I said it against Tennessee. Still got some pushback. Said it against Ole Miss. Got a lot of pushback, even though they did hit pretty well in that series. Here I am against Georgia doing it again. Now, the averages for Georgia are not like what you saw against Mississippi State and even Ole Miss for that matter. They don't have the guys that hit for average like Georgia. But man, they got some dudes. Charlie Condon is a flat out dude. Hitting 415 on the year, 24 home runs, 65 RBIs. By the way, he was at 22 home runs on Sunday. Guy's been red hot. Connor Tate, hitting 390, 15 home runs, 53 RBI. Parks Harbor, 17 home runs, 53 RBI. They have some dudes that can really swing it. Really, really swing it. I know you want Jay to do some different things in the bullpen, and I know you want Jay to do some different things and maybe moving schemes around here and there. Doesn't matter. These dudes can hit, and they might not get to postseason play, and Charlie Condon and Connor Tate collectively together are hitting over 400. Both of them have 15 home runs plus. Parks Harbor has hit 17 home runs in the year, hitting above 300. I'm not worried about Friday. I'm not remotely worried about what is going to happen with Paul Skeens on Friday? Paul Skeens is going to be Paul Skeens. I'm worried about Saturday and Sunday. Now, Skeens will be against a left-hander. Now, Georgia's throwing a left-hander in every game this weekend, but he goes up against Jarvis Evans, who only has thrown 17 and 1/3 innings. He has a 4.67 ERA. He's 2-0 in the season. Looks like a lot of teams are conceding when they play against Paul Skeens. Ty Floyd goes on Saturday, and Charlie Goldstein, 44 innings pitched, 3-1 on the year, 4.50 ERA. Going against Ty Floyd, and then the guy that's been starting all year on the mound is going on Sunday, and Liam Sullivan with Javen Coleman that LSU announced. He's thrown 60 innings, or damn near 60 innings. He's 4-2 on the year. What did I say? Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Andrew had to get me on that one. What did I say? Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You get what I mean. You get what I mean, Andrew. I'm changing it in my notes. Skeens goes tomorrow. You know what I mean. Come on. Andrew, on episode 700, can you give me a break? I'm so used to saying Skeens going on Friday. But yes, he's not lying. He's not even remotely lying. Either way. I've said this all week. I'll continue to say it. I'll continue to say it. When you get in a situation where you got your backs up against the wall, and it's so crazy to think a 40-win team in the regular season has their back up against the wall, but it feels that way a little bit. It does feel that way a little bit. Does it not? Does it not? There's a lot of things going on. A lot of people getting aggravated. How can they respond? How can they respond? Find out. All right, let's get to a couple comments really quickly. Ryan says, so another 14-16 game on Saturday? Maybe. Doug No says, correct. Sorry. Trey Patton says, 07 Reggie Bush was lit. He was. Penn Jones says, every team hits good with these new juiced balls. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down in the comment section. Do you guys believe these baseballs are juiced? Because I do. I don't think guys got miraculously better. Trey Patton says, small sample size. Tennessee teams like Auburn and Tennessee are trending up, and LSU is trending down. Hopefully, they can turn it back around and get on a winning streak. I agree. Paul Zub gives a thumbs up. Julius, Ryan, and Clyde all give a thumbs up. Yeah, I think they are juiced, man. I really do think that they're juiced. Father A-Bear Penn, everybody giving the thumbs up here. I don't know if there's really another explanation that you can give. Levi says, hey, Blake, I don't know if you've been asked this, but do you think teams are throwing their pitchers normally in regionals and super regionals? What do you mean? Do you think teams are throwing their pitchers normally? Oh, no. I don't think Skeens will go up against, like, if you're the number one overall seed, let's say you got you're the 5 overall seed in the tournament, and on Friday, like, you play a Southeastern. No, I do not think so. Maybe not Southeastern, but like if you play a McNeese or a Northwestern, No, I do not believe that Skeens will go. Now, I could be wrong there. I could be wrong. If you're asking about the opposing teams, I don't know that. I would think that they would. I think that they would want to keep their ace for in the regionals against Skeens. I mean, what? I mean, but what do I know, man? I don't know. I don't know. It's gonna be really interesting. It's gonna be really interesting. All right, let me talk about this really quickly because Wilson Alexander from the Advocate is gonna be joining us in just a minute. You know what's interesting? I said this last night, and we talked about it very briefly. We kind of gave a little context, but I want to give more. Now, I don't know where these people are from, but I saw somebody from Sports Illustrated or SI Now kind of steal our content last night. But it's not really stealing anything. I mean, it's somewhat fact. But here's something that they didn't look at. So last night, and we talked very briefly, and I was mentioning that there is a potential when you look at the state of Louisiana and the prospects that are in Louisiana for the 2024 class. Here's some of the guys that you already have committed. Green, Cobbins, McBride, Lee, Foster, Bro. Here are some guys you're trending really well with. Dominic McKinley, Tylen Singleton, Wardell Mack, Joel Rogers, Young. You're trending for majority, if not all, the guys that you don't have, and you already have the guys that you do want, the top prospects in this recruiting class inside the state of Louisiana. You know what's interesting? If Brian Kelly is able to lock in on McKinley, Singleton, Ward, Rogers, and Young, the last time that the state fully, I'm talking about arguably the top, let's just call it 12 to 14 prospects inside the state of Louisiana. You know where you got to go? Now, Les got close a lot of times. Right? Les Miles had a lot of good classes. So did Ed Orgeron. You know, like I look at Ed and see what he did in that 2018 class, right? He got a lot of guys from the state of Louisiana. A lot of the top guys. Terrace Marshall, Kelvin Joseph, Jamar Chase. You remember them. And I know that some of these guys didn't really pan out. But you lost like a couple of them that you kind of wanted, like Eddie Smith, Slade Bolden, Glenn Beal. Oh, and by the way, there was a guy in that class that you didn't even really offer, and Arkansas came and got. His name was Joe Fouché. You know, I look at that 2019 class, right? Like I sit here and I look at that 2019 recruiting class under Ed Orgeron, okay? And I see that you get the Derek Stingley. You get the John Emery. You lose out on Ismail Sobshir and Christian Harris. Now, Christian Harris panned out. Ismail Sobshir did not. You lose out on a Devin Bush. You lose out on another guy that's starting right now for you, and Greg Brooks. See where I'm kind of going with this? When I'm talking about fully locked down, the last time that you had prospects and the state was really locked down in recruiting, 2001 Nick Saban, Hill, Spears, Clayton, Whitworth, Rudy, Sharon, Prude, Williams. All of them were that transitional class for LSU under Nick Saban. Brian Kelly trends. All right, let's go to our good friend Rick always on my rear end, boy. Rick always be on my rear end. Get to Wilson, Blake. He's coming up next. Talking about our good friends over the Drake Williams Law Firm, drakewilliamslawfirm.com. We return soon. Wilson Alexander from The Advocate next.
By the Drake Williams Law Firm, drakewilliamslawfirm.com. Whether you've been injured in an accident, you're preparing for a future with your estate planning, you're getting ready to close in on a real estate deal, or you're about to welcome a new addition through adoption into your family, or you're facing criminal charges, you need very experienced attorneys, and that is what the Drake Williams Law Firm will be able to do for you in navigating the legal system. The door to their cozy office in historic downtown Ponchatoula has been open since 1981. They have helped thousands and thousands of Louisiana families and individuals win cases, close on real estate deals, and regain that peace of mind. Their lawyers over at the Drake Williams Law Firm, Ernie Drake III, Ryan J. Williams, and Summer Vignair, are very determined, compassionate, and dedicated to their craft. It's the Drake Williams Law Firm, drakewilliamslawfirm.com. Give them a call today at 985-386-7600. Tell them your good friend Blake Ruffino at AYS sent you on by.
Wilson Alexander from The Advocate joins us. Wilson, let me ask you a question. When you were a kid growing up, how much of the NCAA football game did you play?
So much of it. I went dynasty mode usually. Played that for as many seasons as possible until the next year came out, and then restarted a dynasty mode. Or I also played a good bit of like create your own player and went through.
Yeah, the road to glory. The road to glory, baby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's your go-to team?
LSU fans aren't going to like my answer.
Georgia?
Yeah, I grew up in Atlanta and went to Georgia myself, and so that was the team I always played with growing up.
Would you take out your frustration? Like if Mark Richt lost a really big game, would you take your frustration? Like would you go play the game like me and take out your frustration because your team lost?
I think I did a time or two, and my dad likes to tell this story because I did the same thing with Madden. Because I would play that. I wasn't really much of my games are like sports games and Star Wars Battlefront, which are some of my interests. And
me too, man.
Yeah, and if I was losing like in the fourth quarter, I would just restart the game. Apparently, instead of taking the L, I would just restart it and play it again.
Hey, man. If I'm losing, I get so pissed. I turn it off. I just I don't throw controllers. I'm like, you know what? I'm having a bad day. I'm going to quit, and then I'm going to come back and reset and play later. That's what I would do, But, hey, I had Les Miles. I mean, that offense was potent that I could run on the NCAA. You know what I mean? Did you read this very quickly before we get into LSU stuff? Did you read that there was like a $5 million cap? Were you kind of surprised by that? Like they're putting like a cap on this, on doing the name, image, and likeness stuff. Were you surprised?
I don't know, surprised or not. I did read that. And I think it worked out based on what I read to like $500 a player. It's also, from what I understand, going to be kind of difficult just to get everybody in the game because you're going to have to go directly to them and everybody's going to have to, sign off and agree to it and all that stuff. And so it's going to be hard to sort of corral however many thousands of college football players to actually get their agreement to, have their name, image, and their likeness in this case. It's all three, I guess, in this case, for the game. So it could be kind of tough. But, I mean, if you're trying to get every single person in the game, then, that $5 million is, I don't know, that's kind of a lot. And so I don't really know if I have a take or an opinion on that necessarily. I just kind of hope it works out for all college football fans' sake that they're able to get a lot of the big names in the game and get them, so that the fans can actually play with those guys. And then so vice versa, those guys can, see a cut. Because that's kind of how all this NIL stuff started, was with the game anyway, and the lawsuit over it. So.
Right. Well, I was watching the movie Air, the Jordan movie that just came out. And Sonny Vaccaro, actually, and I didn't know this, I saw this at the end credits, testified in the Ed O'Bannon case for name, image, and likeness on the deal that they did with Michael Jordan and the equity, he gets X amount per shoe. And I'm like, man, this was such a great movie. You didn't have to tell me all that. College football could have been the exact same if Sonny Vaccaro and Michael Jordan were never alive. That's all I know. All right, Wilson Alexander from The Advocate joining us. You told me today, buddy, that you watched a lot of Logan Diggs. Now, he obviously is the Notre Dame transfer. He comes in. I guess when you've seen a lot of him now, since you've been studying him a little bit more, what's your thoughts on Logan Diggs?
The thing that jumps out on tape from him last season, which is really what I watched, was because, being the most recent year that we have of him, and more representative of what LSU is now getting, is that he's physical. He's a physical runner who can get downhill quickly. He doesn't really – he's good at making somebody miss at the line of scrimmage and avoiding negative plays. You don't see a lot of necessarily breaking off big sort of home runs. He's not that hasn't shown a lot of that in his career, but he's able to, I think, do a really good job of churn his legs, be physical through contact, and help keep an offense ahead of the chains. That's something that Frank Wilson values in his running backs. Last year at the LSU Coaches Clinic, he gave a whole presentation about sort of two things: ball security and contact through the end of a run. And Logan checks off both of those boxes. He had one fumble last year, but Notre Dame didn't lose the ball. It regained possession, so he didn't really lose that at all. And then every single time you see on a run, he's lowering his shoulder through a defender at the end of the run. He's not somebody who's really scampering out of bounds very much, unless there's just absolutely nowhere for him to go. And that's something that Frank Wilson, I think, values quite a bit in his running backs. What he talked about during that coaches clinic was coaching them up on lowering their shoulder through contact at the end of a run. Logan does that, and over time it wears down defenders and helps them break off some bigger things a little bit later in games maybe. So I think this is a good addition for LSU on a couple of different fronts.
A guy that has 2 years, look, he can obviously come back next season. I think that's another big deal. I mean, depending on what his goals are. I think we've all kind of known that Logan Diggs was trending this direction. Wilson, what does this say for John Emery? I mean, for me, I don't want to ask you, is this the last time that we've seen him? Because easily he could get the grades and he could get back on track and be there and Brian Kelly allows him back on. But, man, what does this say for him?
I think it says for across the board in LSU's running back room that there was, some uncertainty and question marks. I had a conversation with Brian Kelly about this last week in an interview with him. That John is probably the main one because it's academic related. It's not injury where you have a little bit more of a plan to get somebody back. A lot of this is just on him to do the right things in the classroom. And when I asked Brian Kelly, what is the latest on John Emery, he was still very non-committal with an answer. The thing that he said most was, the exams, which were last week, were going to be, quote, meaningful for John, and that they're rooting for him, but he's got to do the things to get back on the field. And that path, as Brian Kelly said after the spring game, is there, but it's just uncertain right now. His status is up in the air. That's the best way, I think, to put it at this point. Grades were due this week, and so LSU is going to have a much better picture of where he stands. Maybe summer school is also an option for him, and so this might not be finalized just yet, even though those spring grades are coming in. We don't know. And so what it means for John, though, is also, I think, big picture, not just his availability next season, but, when he got back from that academic ineligibility, suspension, whatever you want to call it, it was like, all right, this is John Emery's time to finally show, this former 5-star, if he can be a bell cow star running back. And he's just hasn't been that, and now with Logan Diggs coming into the picture, even if John does play next year, this is going to be a committee again. And John is probably going to be sort of a complementary piece. He's explosive at times, that run against Alabama, that run against Auburn, not necessarily run against Alabama, catch out of the backfield, putting that foot hard in the ground. I mean, nobody else that LSU has at running back really has shown the ability to do those things, but he's not doing it every game and he's not always available. Now he's got this question mark. And so his status is uncertain right now. And, with Logan Diggs now coming in, I think, for all these running backs, Logan's going to be somebody who's competing for a lot of reps, a lot of playing time, and sort of affecting the way that LSU, the pecking order in some ways. And John's going to feel that if he is available, he probably won't be getting quite as many carries in an already pretty deep room.
What's interesting is I read when you had talked to him, were you shocked to find out that Armani Goodwin kind of had a little bit of a setback? I mean,
not as shocked. I was more shocked to hear that he could be cleared for preseason camp originally, because he had a pretty significant knee injury from what I understand, last fall. And
okay, so it was more than just a hamstring then.
yeah, I mean, he had a knee injury that kept him out. That was what kept him out at the end of the year.
Okay.
And so it was more surprising to me. I was like, oh wow, he could be cleared for preseason camp. That sounds like that's great progress. And then when Brian Kelly said that, actually sort of walked it back a little bit and said that that gave them some pause, that they aren't exactly sure where he's going to be at the start of camp. That sounded, it was a little bit different from what he had said before, but it sort of sounded kind of accurate for or at least made sense for for what Armani's been dealing with a knee injury. And he was doing some straight line conditioning during the spring, but that's certainly, you don't exactly know where he's going to be. And Josh, I don't think we don't know all the particulars, but I don't think he had as severe of a knee injury as Armani did. And so, he's expected to be a participant at the start of camp, but as Brian Kelly said, they don't know exactly at what level that is. So that's, again, some more of these question marks where Logan Diggs, him coming in, that LSU felt was a necessity to have a little bit of clarity and certainty.
Yeah, that's interesting. And look, the offensively, they have pieces, man. They have a lot coming back. And I am a big Caleb Jackson fan. I've been saying, we talked about this last Monday we talked about him for 25 minutes. I think he could do something special, but I do think it's interesting to watch and why Logan Diggs makes a lot of sense here. Wilson, Brian Kelly has somewhat been making the rounds, and you got to speak with him again within the past week. Was there anything that you learned that was eye-opening? I know you talked about the running backs, but I know a lot of people have asked him about Brian Polian, but what was the biggest thing that you learned in speaking with him this past week?
There wasn't a whole lot of news that came out of it just because of where LSU is right now. It hasn't been a newsy offseason. Things are pretty stable. And so it wasn't so much like some big groundbreaking thing. The running back stuff was probably to me, the most interesting. Also, we talked a bit about Garrett Nussmeier, and I can get into more of that if you'd like to. Just that kind of stood out, just sort of how LSU, the pitch to him, and also how Brian Kelly just sort of big picture sees having Nussmeier and Jaden Daniels back-to-back now, having that clear line of succession at the game's most important position, he feels like is sort of a harbinger, is what the word that he used, of consistency, and to be able to get to the Alabamas and the Georgias of the world, and how, you're not just set up not just for 2024, but really for LSU long-term as a program, having Garrett Nussmeier back, he sees as a huge thing. And yeah, Brian Polian, he is interested in finding somebody else to be that GM. Who that's exactly going to be, he said he's in the vetting stages of it. He still also sounds a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he said he was in the vetting stages of finding a candidate. It also sounds like it's a little bit ambiguous exactly still what that person is going to be asked to do. It's sort of a lot of different kind of things, which is sort of how Polian's role was described. And so those are probably the ones that stood out the most when talking to him.
They're just. I hear things, okay? And one thing that I've heard, and LSU posted that, or Juwan Johnson posted this. Has Frank Wilson been formally announced as the recruiting coordinator since Brian Polian has left? I mean, because everybody talking about Frank Wilson right now. I mean, Juwan Johnson put him in the video of him and Juwan celebrating. Is there something that we don't know there? Did that get it? Did you get any clarity on that, or what are your thoughts?
No, Frank does not have the official title of recruiting coordinator. Obviously, though, he was involved heavily in recruiting from the moment that he got to LSU,
right,
with his connections to the state. And it's not necessarily, I think, something that needs to be given a title to him because he's going to go out and do it. He's like the godfather of Louisiana, social studies, Louisiana recruiting. So it's not like he necessarily needs the title unless LSU wanted to use the title as a reason, like give him a pay bump or something.
Right. But he's already the assistant head coach on paper, isn't he?
Yeah, he's running backs coach, and that's what I was going to get to. He's already got that a title of assistant or associate head coach, and so and that's a way to kind of give him that extra title that then comes with more money. And so especially with him and all of his experience coming over from McNeese, having already been a head coach, that made a lot of sense. And so LSU could tack on recruiting coordinator, but no, what I do understand is he's always been heavily involved in the recruiting philosophy and approach. since he got to LSU, and that hasn't changed even with Polian going. Maybe it's a little bit heavier, but he doesn't officially have that title per se. But I don't think that really matters in the grand scheme of things whether or not he has the title, because that's always going to be part of what he does pretty well. So well, I should say, is the recruiting in South Louisiana and building those connections.
Do you think that Joe Burrow? I am off tonight, man. I have a 7-month-old. I don't sleep sometimes. It's the midweek, so you're gonna have to forgive me on these names. Jaden Daniels, Pro Football Focus College Edition, did an interview with him, and you know what the first thought I thought when Jaden finally did something and Pro Football Focus pushing it the way they did? Do you remember Orlando Pace at Ohio State when they did like the Mr. Pancake thing for a Heisman Trophy campaign push?
I do not.
It's like a
I do not remember that.
So it's a 30 for 30. If you hadn't seen it, you should go watch it. It's like how teams like promote like a guy and pushing for the Heisman. I'm like, man, how many times is Pro Football Focus going to ask this man about the damn Heisman? Which made me start to think. So look, you see it right under you. BetOnline had him at plus 1,700 2 weeks ago, and the best Heisman Trophy odds. Now he's plus 1,200. He's been climbing steadily. He had, I think, when the markets opened, plus 2,000. Now he's all the way up to plus 1,200. I know that the lines are coming that way because of people betting them a certain way, but are you surprised that like a lot of people nationally are starting to get behind him here?
Not too much, because especially as you start to get a little bit closer to season and really evaluate where the rest of starting with the rest of the SEC and the rest of the country, so particularly in the SEC, he's the most proven quarterback coming back. You know, does he finish the year as the best quarterback in the league? He's got to go out and do it. But when you're already in that position in the best, arguably the best conference in the country, and you're the best quarterback coming back in the best conference in the country, as people start those off-season talking without much going on, kind of like we are now, his name's going to get brought up a lot, and it's going to probably, people who maybe didn't believe in him might start talking themselves into him as a believer. And so then that hype train starts to roll a little bit more. On 3, Matt Zenitz, he did a story the other day talking to NFL scouts, and some of them were super high on Jaden in that story. And so that starts to continue to add to that hype train a little bit, that people nationally then say, oh, okay, look at this guy. And so, no, it doesn't really surprise me. You see a lot of that in the offseason every year. And now Jaden is kind of the beneficiary of that in a way. Going into the season, there's going to be a lot of expected of him. And a lot of people nationally are going to be watching what he does to see if he can push himself into the conversation as a first-round draft pick, as a Heisman contender, and all those things. Because we saw in those 3 games in particular, Florida, Alabama, and Ole Miss, if he can do that over the course of a season, yeah, he's going to be a Heisman candidate. But he's got to go out and do it. And all this offseason talk ultimately doesn't matter too much in the grand and all that. But it doesn't surprise me that maybe he's one of these people in the offseason that people start to really latch onto and think about and start to hype up.
Last one for you. Is could Florida State and LSU be an appetizer or preview of the national championship?
Ooh, that is an interesting question.
So let me throw this in, Wilson. Now the team's already in my ear saying we're clipping this. Cause listen, Keon Coleman's not a scrub now, and they added Keon Coleman today. Bro, name something that Florida State or LSU has that the teams are so comparable. Dual threat quarterback, running backs, returning offensive line, wide receivers, 2 good defensive linemen, good edge rusher. Sound familiar? A 5-star corner that transferred in, Denver Harris, Ventrell Cypress. Man, I mean, is this a preview for a natty?
It's hard to say at this point, May 17th, that it's a preview for a national championship, because there's just too much time between now and then. But it's a reason it's the marquee game of opening weekend, and it's a reason that the winner of this game is firmly in the national championship conversation and in the hunt. And it could be because, I don't want to say definitively at this point, that it is, but it could be a preview potentially because a team that suffers a loss in that game can still make it to the playoff because it's a non-conference game opening
Right.
weekend, and it'll show the strength of that schedule, especially if both teams have a good year, like so many people think that they will. And so, could they both end up getting there? Yes, even with one of them obviously having to lose. At this point, I don't know if it's a potential preview, I guess, but there's a lot of other teams that are going to be in the mix for that. Michigan, Georgia, of course, trying to go for a three-peat. Alabama's always going to have a say, even if they look like they're, have so much that they have to change. There's a lot of USC with Caleb Williams, if their defense has gotten any better, then there's going to be a lot of teams out there. But LSU and Florida State are both going to be in the mix, and whoever wins that is going to have, as I'm rambling now, but it's going to have a path to the college football playoff. And then the other team can still get there, so maybe, I don't know.
You're not rambling. I was eating all of it. I was taking all of it in. I loved it. Look, man, I just think, this. Okay, there are certain games. Like I know that you're a Georgia dude, but like as an example, when Georgia came to Death Valley in 2003, right, and the Matt Malk Skylar Green catch, when Georgia's on two bad of these, but the Auburn, remember the Nick Marshall, the tip catch?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like, man, there are some significant games that we see when both teams are coming in. Like, there's so much hype around this that, and I know this one's an opener, man, can determine a lot, right? Like a lot that goes, and we talk about it all year, and then we kind of build it up to what it is. I think that's Florida State and LSU right now because, Wilson, I know that Alabama's Alabama. But Tyler Buckner doesn't, and Tommy Rees don't scare me more than what I see Florida State week one. Am I wild in that? Am I crazy in thinking that?
No. This could, especially once we get through the entire season, we could look back on that as LSU's most challenging game
of
the whole year. No doubt. We have to let it play out. We have to see how these teams, where they go and what their opponents do. But when we look back on it, absolutely, because on paper, like you said, there's so much that is interesting about these two teams. Jared Verse, Harold Perkins, and the way that Jared Verse was so good in that opener last year now, but Will Campbell and Emory Jones have had a year to maybe be able to handle him a little bit better. And the two quarterbacks, like you said, and it's also just interesting because these are two programs that LSU is a little bit different than Florida State. But Florida State was really good for a while, and then it's been down, for a good, I'm losing track of the numbers, but 5 to 7 years or so, and now just kind of getting back to that level. And LSU had those 2 down years and is now coming back up, and they're both ascending and trying to break into that highest tier of college football, along with the Georgias and the Alabamas and the Ohio States that are generally kind of up there over the last few years. And so it's a sort of a litmus test really early on, week one, right away, to show if either of these teams really can break into that next level. And we'll know, after Labor Day weekend. But even then, especially if it's a competitive game, you like the chances of both of those teams to still be able to make a run.
Right, because if Florida State hypothetically lost LSU in 3 weeks, they got Clemson. They take down Clemson, and they're right back in the driver's seat. And then I know that I'm rambling here, but Wilson, the other thing I think about, we're building up this Tennessee-Georgia game. Because you don't have Stetson Bennett, you got a new offensive coordinator. Can Tennessee just outscore them? There are just so many storylines that. And look, I watched Georgia spring game. By the way, did you watch Georgia spring game by chance?
Yeah, I watched a lot of the SEC spring games. I got that one too.
Okay. Tell me Georgia defensively isn't just as fast as they were a season ago. I don't know who this kid was. I can't remember. Number 24. That kid can flat out fly, the linebacker. Okay? That kid can fly. So I'm just like, where'd they lose? What'd they lose?
What's funny is that last year Georgia was actually sort of rebuilding on defense after losing 5 first-round draft picks the year before off the 2021 team. They were young defensively, and although they lost Jalen Carter, who, when he wants to be, was their best defensive player and the engine of that defensive front, they are loaded with 5 stars. They are where LSU is trying to get to in 5 years, with building multiple recruiting classes on top of each other. So when you lose a few transfers, it's okay, and when you lose 15 draft picks, it's okay. You can still go back to back. And so, yeah, they should be just fine on defense, if not better than they were a year ago, because a lot of these guys are going to be older. Smile Mondon and Jamon Dumas-Johnson at linebacker. And, they've got some people to replace. Christopher Smith was a safety who was really reliable, fifth-year guy last year. And so they've got to, reload in a couple of spots. But, they've got an edge rusher freshman, Mykyle Williams, a year ago, who is now going to be a starter, and he was a five-star. And so they're able to bring guys up because Kirby Smart has recruited so well. They've got to fix things offensively. Carson Beck probably is going to be the starting quarterback, but they bring in Dominic Lovett, a transfer from Missouri who was fantastic last year, and they've got a lot of pieces. And so there's a reason that right now they're a favorite for possibly three-peat. Yeah.
I mean, Brock Bowers didn't go anywhere neither.
Exactly. So, they're going to be a force still in the East. It's hard to three-peat. I don't think it's ever been done.
No.
It has been a long, long time. Yeah, I don't think so. And so I don't see it happening just because that is so hard to do. Like you said, little things happen, like the tips in Auburn. Like Alabama was trying to three-peat in 2013, and then Auburn has the kick six, and little random stuff like that happens. But
right.
That's the Georgia synopsis, I suppose, at this point.
Well, until a guy who everybody's getting. Why does Stetson Bennett get so much hate? Why, as I get you at it, why does people hate on Stetson so much?
That's a layered conversation. It's because he's a little bit cocky. And I mean, he comes in as a walk-on, and people want to tell you that you just can't do it, and he does it. But he was still sort of, as he won, he was very cocky in doing so. And maybe at times, like with the championship parade, he didn't seem to show a lot of appreciation for the support that he has gotten, and so that annoyed a lot of people in Georgia's fan base. And so that's part of it. But it is, I think, sometimes unfair at times, just like anything else that there are, I guess, the noise kind of comes up, but there are, I know, a lot of Georgia fans who are very appreciative of what he did because they went 40 years without a championship and he helped deliver 2 of them. But it was just sort of the cockiness and sort of this message that, oh, nobody doubted us, or excuse me, everybody doubted us, and y'all thought we were going to go 5-7. It was like, nobody thought that.
How he got them people believing that is mind-blowing. Look, nobody said anything when Joe Burrow had a cigar ready and a hat that had BDJ on it. Okay, so come on. All right. Wilson Alexander from The Advocate. Buddy, thank you so much. Always fantastic, man. I still owe you that lunch, by the way.
I always take lunch. I like food. So.
All right, brother. Well, we'll do it. We'll do it next week. You got my word. All right. Wilson Alexander.
Have a good night.
See you, man. All right. Always fantastic. That dude's really good, man. He's really good. So, about good friend Kel Falls over at State Farm. Stay back. We're going to talk about the SEC. We're going to add on to that. We touch on that next.
Guys, you might know my good friend Carol Falls and all the great service that he provides over at State Farm. He is your good neighbor after all. But did you know State Farm has surprisingly great rates as well? Along with the great neighbor service, State Farm agent Carol Falls has surprisingly great rates for everyone inside the state of Louisiana. So call him today at 985-395-4300, 985-395-4300 for all of those surprisingly great rates on auto, home, and life insurance needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to the State Farm underwriting requirements.
If you watch the Ruffino and Joe show, I earlier gave my predictions on the SEC East. Since we just talked to Wilson Alexander about the SEC East, I think we should end the show by talking about it. This is the order that I have. I'm intrigued to listen to all of you and get your opinion. So name your top 7. Here's my top 7 in the SEC East. You ready? In order: Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri at number 4, South Carolina, Florida, and Vandy. I agree with Wilson. Look, man, they have dudes. Now, can they three-peat? Like this isn't the Carter 3, right? Like we're talking about them doing something that's unheard of. We're talking about Georgia potentially going on a three-peat. So as we talk about these SEC East, who is going to be in order the 7 in the SEC East? Just to remind you, we had Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri at number 4, South Carolina, Florida, and Vandy. Georgia's just loaded, man. And do I think they can slip up, go 11-1? Yeah. Could they lose in the SEC championship game? Maybe. Who knows? This isn't the Carter 3. This isn't you're not going to go repeat C3. You could. Don't think it's going to happen. We'll find out. Tennessee, I just think offensively, they're going to be a juggernaut. And I don't know how you stop them. I really don't know how you stop Tennessee. Joe Milton did do some things. Now, is he Hendon Hooker? No. But if he is what everybody thinks he can be, if Joe Milton is what everybody thinks he can be, can that one loss be from Tennessee to Georgia? Tennessee always has a tough schedule. We'll find that out. The interesting thing that for me and really thinking about this, so Joe and I have been kind of talking about this for the last 2 weeks and really just doing our due diligence. Missouri. Now, LSU plays Missouri this upcoming season. They have back-to-back road games in the SEC. The last time LSU had that and was victorious in both of those was in 2019 when they played Alabama, and then the following week they play at Ole Miss. Missouri's got a lot of production. And I do think at the end of all of this, they could be a better team than South Carolina, Florida, and Vandy. Eli Drinkwitz is fighting for his outright job right now. He's fighting for his job. Can he get to 8-4 and save himself? That defense is very fundamentally sound. They lost 4 games by 1 possession or less, meaning, or no, just 1%. No, you can't more than 1 possession. You get what I'm saying. They lost 4 games on 1 possession. I meant to say 7 points or less. I think Missouri might be a little bit more solid of a team than we're giving them credit for. That is my hot take of the night. And I could be easily wrong there. Florida. Guys, I have Florida at 5-7 at number 6. Tell you why. I don't have really any faith in Billy Napier. I don't know where they got better. I don't think their quarterback's better. I don't think they're better. It's going to be interesting to find out. All right, let's get on out of here. Episode 700. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that like and share. We'll see y'all tomorrow after the LSU game. Be fun. We're going to do a post game. See you there. Peace.